All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamer Dad channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today, we got to talk about two huge expansions in the Division universe. The first expansion was the Division 1's Underground and Survival expansion. These particular expansions were a very pivotal one for the game itself. It really did breathe a new era of life into the Division 1. Fast forward to the Division 2, the expansion that really also kind of did that was the Warlords of New York expansion, except for its infamy at the end of the day. Now, what I mean by its infamy is, many of you may or may not remember, but I'll go ahead and remind you, Warlords of New York came with a lot of controversy. Remember that there were ban hammers that were thrown around because at some rate, the developers did not necessarily fortify their build of that the expansion or DLC, and people were able to find exploits. Not only that, the developers were in a position where they thought banning people was the best thing to do, and as they swung the ban hammer, they were not accurate, or they opened the door to be blamed for favoritism and not applying whatever they thought was, the right accountability measures equally. And I'm going to go ahead and say a few things. I remember, many of you remember, that during that time there were content creators who also used exploits that did not get banned. There were people who did not use exploits, who claimed they didn't use exploits, that got banned. Or I would say their progress was rolled back. Let me not say banned, but it was kind of a ban though. In a sense, it was a soft ban. You know what I mean? They didn't want to ban their own players. And then they had their community people come out and communicate with, the community and said, oh, well, we were accurate and we ensured that everybody who actually engaged in these exploits actually did receive the right accountability measures, when in reality, that was not the case. I think this single-handedly dampened any air of excitement that the Division 2 had going for it. I think this was the biggest momentum killer for the game itself. The game has gone through many changes, many new expansions released, a lot of really cool stuff in terms of, the developers bringing new stuff to light. But I can say without, a shadow of doubt, that the momentum that the Division could have gained, did that not happen, would have been much bigger. And this is the Division 2. So I think after this, the developers basically were in a position, or maybe their publisher was in a position where they were like, well, perhaps we could just shut down this thing after it's all said and done. But as time went on, it seemed like they started to look at the player base and started to look at the monies involved. And they realized like, even though these things happened, it appears that people are still in a position where they're coming back, or at least many of them have stuck with the game, even with its poor reputation. Now, why did I make this video? I made this video because this is a reminder and a lesson that should be learned very, very carefully from the decision makers within the team. As they're making a third division game, there is one thing that they can do to prevent anything else like this happening, and that's to make a game that's functional, a game that does not have these kinds of exploits. And as someone who is, a wannabe indie developer, I know that I have to show grace as well to other developers. However, if your game has a bug and your game has a possibility of exploits, then you need to be fair to your community in the way you handle things, because that exploit, there is a measure of accountability that is on you, the developer, and the development team. There's no doubt about that. This is why everybody at that time, and I say this because, hear me out, gave Bungie the accolades for managing and actually, handling their own exploits that, their own bugs caused differently from the way that Ubisoft Massive went about theirs. And that was a very interesting thing. That was a simple fact. I mean, Bungie, what they went ahead and did, and, in their case, and even some other studios, was that they basically laughed it off and they found a way to maybe go ahead and possibly maybe give those rewards. In some games I've heard that they went ahead and gave some of those rewards to other players around, in the game as well, so that people did not feel like, they were following the rules and they lost out. There are many ways, and I think that there were many ways that this could have been sorted without basically disrupting the game's momentum at the time, and it could have basically calmed down a lot of the controversy. If I was in the shoes of the developers, I would have easily said, okay, what were the rewards that we were hiding behind these content pieces? I would have easily said, all right, we're going to reward everybody with, this exotic weapon or this exotic item. And then on the back end, we make some really, really cool ones that are probably maybe more powerful or, maybe more cooler. and then lock them behind those content pieces when we patch the game. I think this would have been a really good middle ground to be able to solve things. And, again, this is not something that, is rocket science, but because, a lot of the decision makers, maybe for the most part, we're not necessarily thinking about things from that perspective. They lost what I thought was a very golden opportunity at the end of the day. But, hindsight is 2020, and I'm not going to lie. That's a solution that I probably thought about after a while. Maybe in the heat of the moment, they probably just didn't have anybody that was able to think about how to implement this. And here we are sitting in a time where, the game is basically in its year 5, probably, in a place where the player base is a few percentage points lower than it could have been. Did that not happen? Because there are people who have not forgotten this. There are people who've never returned to the division because of this. This is a very important thing that needed to be addressed at the time. And I strongly believe that, there is a measure of accountability all over the place. Yes, people who went ahead and did exploits and cheated, they made the community mad, and many people had no remorse for them. Those who said that, they did not cheat, but maybe they joined the game and they saw people doing stuff, and by the time they left, it was too late. They were registered. Those people also felt some level of, betrayal, in a sense that they did not want to do anything that was not, sanctioned by the game, but they got thrown into, the whole mix as well. So it's a very crappy situation, and at the end of the day, I hope that that never happens for the Division 3, and the developers learn a very, very solid lesson, because it costs money. It's not just a thing. It's expensive. Because again, devs, hear us out. If we don't pay y'all don't get paid. It's how it is. That's how it is. As a wannabe developer, I'm hoping that my audience is happy to pay for my game, and I'm wanting to make them happy as much as I possibly can, because if they don't pay me, should maybe one day in the future, fortunately, I release a game. I don't know if that'll happen, but I would love for that to happen. I'd love for my audience to be on my side. And that's the main thing that needs to be learned here. The audience is mostly on your side, but if they're not on your side, you have to find a way to bring them to your side. That's my video. Thanks for watching. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.